Many of our politicians also own properties. Many of our politicians are also landlords. Many of our politicians are also friends with people who own a shit ton of properties. Wouldn't solving the homeless problem help the rich get more workers? Why do they push against it? What are you talking about? No, it's the opposite. Homelessness in the way that it exists is phenomenal for the wealthy. Why? Because one, their police is always going to push them away. And I say this as a person who lives in a wealthy part of Los Angeles, but not like wealthy. You know what I mean? Still a very wealthy part of Los Angeles, but there's still a shit ton of homelessness here. As you guys know, famously, I had a serial masturbator. He's gone now, but I don't know what's happened to him. But there's plenty of homeless people around. But the threat of homelessness as what will happen if you don't work really hard is one, pretty good for a lot of the capital owners. The other part is that homelessness happens as a consequence of the housing market constantly pushing artificial scarcity despite the demand. So for the wealthy, it's infinitely more important to protect their assets and to ensure that their property values continue rising rather than, fixing the problem, fixing the root cause of the problem, which would greatly hurt the wealthy. Is artificially scarcing in housing like impossibly high cost? No, it's just like not building low cost housing, not building social housing, public housing. It's not building housing at all. Or if you do build housing, you just only allow luxury condominiums. Look, make no mistake. The greatest reason as to why we will never fix, with the way things stand, the housing crisis in this country and homelessness in this country is because a shit ton of Americans, and I'm not talking about like billionaires. I'm talking not even millionaires in certain instances, but a shit ton of Americans rely on their houses being an investment vehicle, rely on even the house that they're living in as a vehicle for wealth accumulation. What do I mean by this? What I mean is a lot of Americans, when they are fortunate enough to be able to purchase a home, they sit on it and the property and they're used to the property value rising dramatically. What do they do with that? Well, one, that contributes to their net worth. Two, they can take money against that by putting a mortgage on their houses if they've already paid it out, for example, or a second mortgage, even though they have a first mortgage. You're talking about people's retirement plans. You're talking about the entire, we're not talking about just, 1% of the American population. We're talking about close to 60% of the population. That is a ginormous amount. And all those people vote too, by the way. So for that reason, it is incredibly unpopular to push for any kind of measure that would genuinely fuck up the bag for 60% of Americans. To them, I say sucks to suck, by the way. Don't make a mistake here. I personally, as a homeowner myself, don't give a because I am not reliant on the property that I currently own increasing in value. I use this as the primary focus, shelter. So for me, it doesn't matter if the prices of this house, if the price of this house goes down or up. I'm using it for shelter. That's the purpose of it. 60% of Americans own a home. Yeah, home ownership rates in the United States of America, I think are like 60%, something like that. I think it might even be 66%. Let me look at it real quick. Yeah, 65.7%. Homeownership rate in the United States rose slightly in 2022, reaching the highest figure since 2011. However, in 2023, the proportion of households occupied by owners declined to 65.7%. What do they mean by ownership? I think a lot of you as younger people in this chat don't realize that there was a time and place when a lot of Americans owned their own home. It was the part of the American dream. Okay, but you're sort of missing the point. You're also not relying on your home to provide for your retirement because you're wealthy. This all goes back to the decimation of the pensions, yes, or not inadequate Social Security, as well as the decimation of pensions. So a lot of people own homes. I am unique in the sense that for me, this house is not my retirement plan, and its value, its property value increasing is not a factor of consideration for my net worth. I don't care. However, for almost every single person in the 65.7% bracket, their houses are their primary value provider, their primary source of accumulating wealth. This is perhaps the single greatest hurdle in combating the homelessness crisis that we are facing. This is why there needs to be a relatively authoritarian measure that is not even so authoritarian after all, as a matter of fact. Like in California or in many other parts of the country, we pass anti-homelessness initiatives by incredibly popular, incredibly wide margins. California has a bill a ballot measure almost every election where they're like, we are going to increase property values taxes by, I don't know, 25% if they're over $5 million. And that gets passed with tremendous support. And then we collect the money to the tune of billions of dollars, mind you. And then nothing ever happens. The real reason why nothing ever happens is because although people voted for it, the calculation that the Democrats make in places like California is that they do not want to upset the massive amount of homeowners in the country, in the state. I want to see what the homeownership rate in California is. See, yeah, look, California has declined from around 50% in 2000 to around 44% in 2021, with younger Californians aged 35 to 45 experiencing the steepest decrease. So that's like 50% of Californians, 44% of Californians that'll be like, what the fuck, my housing values went down. Sure, there's no more homeless people in the streets, but my home value went down. And that's my entire life savings. We're talking about an entire century almost of the American dream being propped up and with people legitimately purchasing homes at a time when they could. I don't see the problem. Just save up and budget and buy your own house after saving for a couple years. Chatters all just need the latest smartphone and Starbucks every day. Okay, shut the fuck up. That person is memeing. Please don't yell at this guy. He's memeing in the dumbest way possible. Yeah, dude, just cut back on the jalapeno poppers or the avocado toast, depending on where you're living, and you'll be able to buy a house in no time. But that is just plain stupid investment if you invest in housing in an artificially inflated market. It doesn't matter. It is the democratic process in some ways that holds it up. Because guess what, dude? Out of the 44%, you bet your ass almost every single person in that 44% is voting. They make up an overwhelming population of voters. That's why they don't do it. Although they should. I think they shouldn't hold public town halls and have every reactionary NIMBY come and yell at them. I think they should actually follow on the democratic process and follow through with the promises that they made that the voters voted for. I never got why you chose LA. Aren't there better spots, cost and weather-wise? First of all, the cost is not obviously significant for me. And secondly, I like living in Los Angeles. I've lived here for 10 years. I'm comfortable living here. I'm comfortable living in the area that I live in. This is what I know. This is what I love. That's it. And the weather is definitely the best. There is objectively no other area that you can live in that has better weather, in my opinion. It is currently 61 degrees and actually sunny as shit. Why exactly does it make the value go down? Well, it doesn't make the value go down. It makes the value stay the same. Because if there's more supply on housing, then all of a sudden, the house that you have is not going to always increase in value. There's a finite amount of land, but God forbid if we were to use that land for anything but single family homes, by the way, which is another zoning regulation that I hate to admit the YIMBYs are correct on. And it's not just about building homeless shelters. I'm talking about like, there are a million different reasons as to why people abhor the concept of more housing being built. One, construction in your backyard. That's going to lead to complications. Construction can take a very long time. Two, if you build affordable housing, all of a sudden, your housing value will also go down because, well, there's an apartment right next to your single family home. People that buy single family homes do not want to live around apartments. I do not have such fears or opinions. I do live in a mixed zone regardless. West Hollywood is not only single family homes, contrary to popular opinion. Then subsidize? No, pay the NIMBYs, as annoying as they are. I think that would also be ridiculous. You're talking about 50% of the population, brother or sister or MB. So how do we get people to stop caring about their property value? You don't. You just do it. They voted for it. It's democracy. Sucks. Fucking suck. But that would require bravery. That would require leadership. That would require moral courage, which is something that our politicians lack. They're also obviously vested interested parties themselves. Many of our politicians also own properties. Many of our politicians are also landlords. Many of our politicians are also friends with people who own a shit ton of properties. I don't understand why Americans prefer a huge homeless population in their city centers over a few more taxes and shelter spaces. I'm describing to you why it's not a preference. It's not a matter of preference at all. To put it into simpler terms, there are more people who see, and I'm not saying that like people are socialist or anything. I don't think it's a socialist principle to think that like you buy a house so you can live in it. I don't think that's socialist at all. I think it's just normal. But in America, we don't think about it like that. You as renters think about it like that. But many people who purchase homes, once they have that home and rely on that home value going up, don't think about it like, oh, well, this is my shelter. They think about it as this is my shelter. And perhaps even more importantly, this is my primary source of wealth accumulation. This is my nest egg. This is what is a substitute for my pension. It's so funny to me that you fully understand these things and have hella empathy, but liberals in my city with realistically much less money cannot access reality or empathize with other people. And half of Twitter still thinks you're the enemy. Yes. The reason why people think I'm the enemy is because I'm rich. That's it. And it's totally valid for people to think that. I get that. Why wouldn't you? It's normal. And I would even say, dare I say, healthy to be resentful of rich people. How you make your money is obviously important. And I think that people should probably find better villains. But I get it. People think I say this as a grift. It's a very profitable grift if you think about it exclusively as just myself.